move to questions without notice. Senator Sheldon, if please. Senator Ciccone.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. Anne is an aged care nurse who has been in her profession since 1978. She has said, and I quote, "The proposed legislation doesn't make things better for us and our residents. It makes it so much worse. And to be honest, I don't think I can handle any more cuts." Can the Minister guarantee Mr Morrison's industrial changes won't see workers paid less?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. I thank the senator for his question. I can absolutely guarantee that the industrial relations reforms our government proposes, alongside indeed all of the measures our government is proposing, are about ensuring that Australians have access to more jobs, to more job opportunities, to be able to work in an economy that is growing faster, more strongly, in creating those jobs, creating and putting pressure on wages over time to drive wages growth too, and that indeed what we want for Anne or for any employee across Australia is to have more opportunity overall, Mr. President, to have more opportunity overall. And so our determination through this passage, having spent many hours engaging with the union movement, engaging with employer organisations, is to try to find efficiencies within the operation of the industrial relations system such that there can be far greater confidence for employers to grow their businesses, to hire more people, to create more opportunities, because that is precisely what we have been driving at as a government. And as we've worked through this pandemic period, we've been able to save, according to the Reserve Bank, some 700,000 jobs saved as a result of some of the direct policy actions of the government. We've been able to bring back more than 90% of those employees who found that their hours went to zero or lost their jobs during the depths of the pandemic. We've been able to see around 800,000 jobs recreated, jobs growth over recent time, and pleasingly, very significant jobs growth among women. Because one of our greatest achievements prior to the pandemic was to see women's workforce participation reaching record levels, and it's fantastic to see it driving back to that point yet again.
Time for the answers expired. Senator Ciccone, a supplementary question.
Karen has been a registered nurse for 12 years. She says losing her penalty rates under the Coalition Industrial Relations changes, and I quote, "will have an impact on my income and that of my colleagues. This will mean a drop in our standard of living and spending power." Why does the Coalition Government want to inflict pay cuts on our nurses in the middle of a pandemic?
Senator Birmingham.
Mr. President, it's just not the case. It's not the case that there is any intention for those sorts of outcomes from the legislation that is before this parliament and upon which a committee will report in a few weeks' time, and which this chamber will have its opportunity at that stage to debate and to pursue. But our intention is fully that there are more jobs, more job opportunities, and from that, better income security for Australians into the future. And we want to make sure through this that there are the maximum incentives for new jobs to be created for Australians, be they on greenfield sites, for example, where there have long been concerns about the operation of the system. And what's distressing is that those opposite have decided to check themselves out of the debate completely in favour of a scare campaign. They've said, we're voting against this bill holus bolus, even the parts that the trade union movement have argued for. They're not even going to vote for tougher penalties on wage theft. It's remarkable to think that that is the case.
Senator Birmingham, time for the answers expired. Senator Ciccone, a final supplementary question.
Aged care nurse Belinda has pleaded, and I quote, "It is already so hard for us. Please do not make things harder." Why is Mr Morrison and his government ignoring the pleas of workers like Belinda and instead choosing to suppress wage growth and exacerbating insecure working conditions in the middle of a global pandemic?
Senator Birmingham.
Well, Mr President, a better question would be, why is Senator Ciccone and the Labor Party so intent on trying to scare people with falsehoods, with lies, with mistruths? Why is it, Mr President? Why is it, Mr President, that those opposite have checked themselves out of any sort of rational policy debate, and instead
Senator
they
Wong,
just want to try to run
Senator
another scare
Keneally.
campaign? Well, on this side of Parliament, we are about trying to get things done that create more jobs. And our government succeeded.
Senator Watt.
Through our first 6 years, Senator Watt, we created 1.5 million more jobs for Australians.
Order.
1.5 million more jobs.
Senator Birmingham, please resume your seat. I doubt anyone in the chamber can hear me with my open microphone. There was so much noise. I'm going to ask for some restraint. Well, I couldn't hear him either, Senator Farrell. There were too many interjections. Senator Birmingham.
I'm pleased Senator Farrell could hear me, because I was talking about the more than 1.5 million additional jobs created through the first 6 years of our term in government. Workforce participation hitting record levels. Women's workforce participation hitting record levels. We want to make sure that we get back to that point post-pandemic, and the only thing in our way is you lot.
Time for the answers expired. Senator Van.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Senior Australians and Aged Care Services, Senator Colbeck. Can the Minister inform the Senate of the government's plans to roll out the COVID-19 vaccine into aged care facilities across the country?
The Minister for Aged Care, Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President, and thanks, Senator Van, for the question, an important one, especially given the Prime Minister and the Health Minister have just advised of the TGA's provisional regulatory approval of the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is, of course, central to our vaccine strategy. Mr President, rolling out the COVID-19 vaccine to our frontline healthcare quarantine workers and our most vulnerable is the highest priority of the government. We saw the first delivery of Pfizer vaccines touch down in Sydney yesterday, and we are working to have those vaccines distributed to those priority groups across the country. Vaccination for residents and staff will be made available through residential aged care facilities where they live or work. The vaccine implementation plan for residential aged care plans aims to administer doses to more than 240 aged care facilities in the first week. Vaccines will be delivered by Commonwealth-led teams, Mr President. Healthcare Australia will provide vaccination workforce in New South Wales and Queensland, and Aspen Medical will be responsible for the other states and territories. The vaccination program will be supported at local levels by the primary health networks, and everybody, Mr President, responsible for providing the vaccine in aged care settings will be required to have completed the relevant training, including the use of multi-dose vials, cold storage and, of course, infection control. In the coming weeks, Mr President, the vaccination program will reach more than 2,600 residential aged care facilities, more than 183,000 residents and 339,000 staff.
Senator Van, a supplementary question.
Thank you. Can the Minister update the Senate on how the government is supporting providers, residents and their families for the vaccine rollout?
Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. An important question. Information has been sent out, Mr President, to aged care facilities for residents and their families, carers and loved ones about what to expect in the lead-up to and on vaccination day. Our clinical workforce will work very closely with each facility in the lead-up to vaccination day to plan and to make sure each vaccination day runs safely and efficiently. Each residential aged care facility will ask residents and their substitute or their substitute decision-maker, if one is in place, to consent to receiving a COVID-19 vaccine. Clinical staff at facilities will check the health of residents prior to administering the vaccine, and if families have any concerns about the health of residents, they should consult a GP. As always, safety, safety, safety is uppermost in our minds as we embark on our vaccination program across the country.
Senator Van, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the Minister also update the Senate on the phased national rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine?
Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. COVID-19 risks the lives of the most vulnerable in our society. We have prioritised those most at risk, our senior Australians and our frontline workers. They will be part of Phase 1A. It is on track as planned to roll out next week. Phase 1B will include adults aged over 70 years and over, other healthcare workers, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people over 55, younger adults with an underlying medical condition, including those with a disability, critical high-risk workers, including defence, police, fire, emergency services and meat processing workers. Phase 2A, Mr President, includes adults aged 50 to 69 years, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people aged 18 to 54 years and other critical and high-risk workers. Phase 2B, Mr President, extends to the remainder of the population within Australia over the age of 16.
Senator Keneally.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Reynolds. Yesterday, the Minister stated that the grant to the National Retailers Association was made, and I quote, in response to that terrible terrorist attack in Melbourne. Does the Minister stand by this statement?
The Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Reynolds.
Well, thank you very much, Mr President. And yes, I do, and I'll reiterate the advice that I received yesterday. So the National Retailer Association, as I noted yesterday, does donate to both sides of politics. But I did also note that there was the Bourke Street terror attack on the 9th of November. On the 9th of November 2018, one male attacker, whose name I won't mention, set his car on fire and stabbed 3 people and attacked police in Melbourne. Of those 3 stabbing victims, as we all know, one was a much-beloved Melbourne identity, Sisto Malaspina, a retailer of the type of which the National Retailers Association provides advocacy for. Later the same month, on the 20th of November, 3 men inspired by the Islamic State terror group were arrested on suspicion of plotting a terror attack in Melbourne. They had tried to source a semi-automatic rifle to kill as many people as possible in a crowded space, police will allege. The National Retailers Association applied for funding for a Protecting Crowded Places project to assist retailers to deter, detect, delay and respond to a terrorist attack. Now, noting the significant events affecting the public and retailers over the months of November 2018, the Minister for Home Affairs office asked the Department of Home Affairs to consider this proposal, and he has asked also, and he asked the Department of Finance to cost it to ensure it was suitable and it was value for money. The proposal was subsequently assessed and recommended to be funded as it represented value for money and a proper use of Commonwealth resources, consistent with the Public Governance Performance and Accountability Act 2013.
Senator Keneally, a supplementary question.
Thank you. I thank the Minister for that answer. Documents released under Freedom of Information show that on 28 September 2018, almost 2 months before the Bourke Street attack, Minister Dutton directed his department to consider a proposal for a grant to the National Retailers Association for protecting public spaces. How could the minister request his department to consider a grant in response to a terrorist attack that had not yet occurred?
Senator Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Mr President. And Senator Keneally, I think you have completely misunderstood, so I'll go back over the answer I've just given.
Order.
Order. So, this is all about the politics of this issue, and this is really not a grant or a grant program to take that out. So again, this grant was for the type of these activities. The National Retailers Association, who represents businesses like those who were impacted by that terrible attack, seeking for crowded place protection. That is exactly at the heart of what this grant was all about.
Senator Scarr. Senator Keneally.
Thank you, Mr President. Public documents reveal the minister received a direct political donation from the National Retailers Association a week before he asked his department to fast-track a nearly $1 million grant. The Bourke Street terrorist attack was a national tragedy. It saw 1 victim lose his life and 2 stabbing victims seriously injured. Is the minister really using this tragedy to cover up his conflict of interest?
Senator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr President. And there is only one side of politics in this chamber who is playing politics with this issue. It was very clear that this was funding for protecting crowded places, which is exactly what you said, what Senator Keneally said.
Senator Keneally.
It was vetted by Finance, it was vetted by the Home Affairs, and this was to protect retailers from terrorist attacks. It is that simple, and there is only one side who is playing politics with that, and that is that side of the chamber.
Order. I'm going to ask senators to recall my Senator Keneally, while I'm talking, please. I'm going to ask people to respect my request that when they're called by name to at least count to 10 slowly before they start breaching standing orders again. Senator Waters.
Thanks very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. I refer to Brittany Higgins's allegations of rape in this building almost 2 years ago. I asked you yesterday whether the Sex Discrimination Commissioner would be tasked with a culture review of Parliament, but you didn't answer me. The Prime Minister this morning announced that a Liberal MP will undertake a culture review and that the Deputy Secretary of PM&C will undertake a review of the handling of Brittany's complaint. Given the secrecy with which previous reviews have been undertaken by PM&C, will the Prime Minister guarantee that the findings of these reviews will be made public? And how can women have confidence that change will flow from 2 internal reviews when the culture of silencing is part of the problem?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. I thank Senator Waters for her question. It's essential in matters such as this that the support provided to employees, members of Parliament or any other individual in this building is support that is timely, is effective and is ongoing or enduring wherever necessary. It's important that in ensuring that we can provide such support to individuals, everyone has confidence in the processes and support and systems that are available to them. And that's why the Prime Minister has asked in particular the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet to assist and advise on how those processes can work to support people. It is my full expectation that in relation to the conduct of that work, Ms Foster, the Deputy Secretary, will engage with Kate Jenkins, the Sexual Discrimination Commissioner and author of the Respect at Work report. I also note that in the other place, the Prime Minister has indicated a willingness and openness to working with party leaders across the Parliament in relation to how these processes can be strengthened, including the type of work that Ms Foster will undertake and any additional assistance or work alongside her that will be necessary.
Senator Waters, a supplementary question.
Thank you, President. Noting the Prime Minister's previous empathy training, will the Prime Minister now undertake training to become aware of the victim blaming implicit in his statement about Brittany, quote, being found in a vulnerable situation, end quote, as opposed to men's bad behaviour causing that situation, and training to understand the sexist underpinnings of his statement that he had to think of his daughters when thinking about how Brittany's rape case should have been handled?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. Well, respect is crucial at all points of considering these matters. And ultimately, respect in this particular case for Brittany, her wishes and the support that she needs is the most important factor. The government, through the Minister, as indicated, sought to provide support for Brittany. It is with deep regret and deeply distressing that, despite those efforts, including Minister Reynolds facilitating discussions with the police and the offer of assistance through the Department of Finance, that support was not adequate. And we have to address that and rectify those issues. That's what the processes that will be undertaken will seek to do, to ensure that, whilst we will continue to offer whatever support to Brittany and to the police investigation, that also in the future we make sure that staff can have greater confidence in the support that is available to them and utilise it.
Senator Waters, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, President. This morning the Prime Minister said that Brittany should be listened to. Will he listen to her call today for an independent body for staff to take complaints to?
Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, I imagine that the robustness of the Department of Finance procedures that are available at present will absolutely be part of investigations and discussions that ensue in relation to these matters. And where gaps exist in terms of the confidence that staff have in utilising those processes, well then options will be on the table to fill those gaps. And the government is not seeking to rule out options in that regard. The most important thing is that the support is there for individuals like Brittany to feel empowered to make the best decisions for them, to feel supported, empowered and respected through the decision-making processes that they wish to make. And clearly, the systems need to be in place to support individuals feeling that way, and we want to make sure that the systems are enhanced to achieve that outcome.
Senator Griff.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to Senator Birmingham as the Minister representing the Treasurer. Last night, the ABC's Australian Story ran a harrowing story about the dangers of button batteries. Last December, after many years of lobbying by advocates, including parents and paediatricians, the government introduced mandatory safety standards for button batteries, but these only come into effect in 18 months' time. In the ABC program, the Deputy Chair of the ACCC said, "We need a general safety provision that makes it illegal to sell unsafe goods in Australia. At the moment, it is not illegal." End of quote. Minister, the government has been looking at the introduction of a general safety provision since 2015. Does the government agree that there must be a general safety provision that makes it illegal to sell unsafe goods in Australia?
The Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. I thank Senator Griff for his question, and I know his advocacy on these issues. I note his moving in November of last year a motion in the Senate related to button batteries and also the call to introduce a general product safety provision in the Australian consumer law. The government certainly takes seriously the safety of consumers, and on the 21st of December, as you acknowledged, the government announced new mandatory safety and information standards for button batteries and products that contain them to improve the safety of such products, including their design, packaging and labelling. There are indeed distressing stories in the past in relation to such products, and the government has sought to work through the processes of consumer law, which include engagement with the states and territories, to be able to bring about this ban and to provide heightened levels of protection. In relation to general product safety provisions, certainly the government is of a strong view that all actions to protect consumers wherever necessary from unsafe products ought to be taken. Obviously, there are legal remedies and expectations in the common law at present that are available and place expectations upon businesses in relation to the safety of products that are offered on the market. However, in terms of specific consideration around a general product safety provision, I will revert to the relevant ministers and provide any further information that I can to the chamber. Senator Griff.
Senator Griff, a supplementary question.
Minister, you haven't clearly stated whether you intend to legislate. You reference that you will defer to the appropriate minister. So, should I take it that the government at this point does not agree that Australia needs to urgently legislate a general safety provision? I mean, it's 5 years down the track now and a number of very significant issues. It does appear that the government does not see this as an urgent matter.
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. Senator Griff, certainly product safety overall is very important. A general product safety provision, I imagine, would come with a number of different complexities in relation to its drafting and interpretation. Clearly, as I indicated before, there are processes in relation to consumer law matters over which the states and territories often have primacy and which are usually developed in consultation and through consensus and agreement across the relevant ministerial councils there. I'm not briefed today in terms of the detail and status of those particular discussions. That's why I undertook in the primary question to consult with relevant ministers, and I will do that and bring whatever further information in relation to that more sweeping provision back to the chamber for you.
Senator Griff, a final supplementary question.
Minister, I appreciate that you'll bring that information back to the chamber, But when you do that, do you personally see this as a priority, and a priority that needs to be dealt with before Parliament is prorogued for the next election?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. Well, I certainly see the safety of Australian consumers, and particularly young consumers, children, as a very stark priority and an important one. It's important in terms of the work of this parliament that we make sure that the legislation we bring forward, when we bring it forward, is also effective in meeting the objectives. There is little point in terms of generic provisions, bringing them forward if they will simply create confusion but not effectively provide for the outcome, in this case the outcome of safety. That's why working through, particularly with the states and territories in relation to such consumer law protections, is the appropriate thing. It's also the necessary thing under our constitutional structures. I would hope that if such provisions can be provided for that do give a significant enhancement to consumer safety, that they would be brought forward as quickly as possible, Senator Griff. But without having those briefings and advice, I can't commit to a timeline.
Senator Birmingham. Senator Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Defence, Senator Reynolds. Reports indicate the alleged rapist's employment with the Minister's office ended on Tuesday, the 26th of March 2019. What was the reason for his employment ended, and did he resign or was he sacked?
The Minister for Defence, Senator Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and I thank the senator for her question. I will answer the question, but if you would allow me just to address some of the matters that have been the subject of a lot of media in the last 24 hours. Reflecting on the circumstances and reflecting on what I would say here in the chamber today, saying sorry is often the hardest thing for those of us who work in this place to say. But can I say today, sorry is the easiest word for me to say. And I unreservedly apologise to Brittany Higgins. And last night we all heard from Brittany herself in her own words. Her trauma, her distress was very, very clear to all to see. The fact that she felt unsupported in her time working here was also very, very clear for us all to see. And for that, I apologise. At the time, I truly believed that I and my Chief of Staff were doing everything we could to support that young woman who I had responsibility for. At all times, my intent and my aim was to empower Brittany and let her determine the course of her own situation. Not by me, not by my staff, not by the government as a whole, but by Brittany. When I first met with her in my office about the matter, I was not aware of the details and circumstances of what occurred. However, I deeply, deeply regret conducting the meeting in my office where the alleged incident had occurred. It is now clear that this also has caused ongoing distress to Brittany herself and compounded the trauma that she continues to experience. And for that,
Senator Reynolds, I have Senator Wong on a point of order.
Mr President, what I would ask is I would move that the Minister be given an extension of time, because obviously she wishes to make this statement, but we also would have given her leave to make this statement at any time. As she has said, she will come to the question. So I would propose by leave that she be given a further 2 minutes to come to the question when she's concluded this statement.
I'll take it unless there's an objection that leave is granted. Please reset the clock. Senator Reynolds.
Look, thank you very much, Mr President, and thank you very much to Senator Wong for that. As I said, it was very clear to me from seeing and hearing from Brittany on the TV last night that there was a range of circumstances which compounded her trauma and her grief. No woman should ever have to go through what she has clearly been through. That trauma that comes not just in the immediate aftermath of an assault, but in the many months and the many long years that follow it, is what those of us in this building failed to acknowledge. However, listening to Brittany describe the depression and the trauma she experienced in that subsequent time, It is very, very clear to me that more could and should have been done to support her. The kind of support Brittany needs has to start in a political office. It starts with her boss, in this case with me, with her colleagues, with her friends, but it cannot end there. That is why I welcome the Prime Minister's announcement this morning that he intends to look at how we can improve the support mechanisms offered to staff and the processes around the handling of these most serious of workplace complaints. As the inquiries that the Prime Minister has announced and as the AFP investigation that was opened 2 years ago continue, I will work with them in every way that I possibly can. Mr President, we have to do better, and I'm sure we all want to do better. In relation to the question of my second staff member, he left my office shortly after that. I sought advice from Ministerial and Parliamentary Services, who assisted me through that process, and he was terminated from my
Order.
office.
Senator Reynolds, time for the answer has expired. Senator Gallagher, a supplementary question.
So I think the answer is that he was sacked. Is that correct? The alleged rapist has been described as the minister's favourite, a go-to person who had a special bond with the minister. Did the minister consider it odd that her favourite go-to person would resign on the spot for a security breach without a conversation with her? Has the minister had any contact with the alleged offender since his termination, and if so, when?
Senator Reynolds.
Well, look, thank you very much, Mr President. And the circumstances for both of my staff will be subject of all of the ongoing investigations because they all relate to the same matter. What I can say is, of course, I am responsible for my own conduct, and as every single person in this place is. In relation to how I dealt with both of my staff, at all times I sought advice from Ministerial and Parliamentary Services, who worked and assisted me right through this process in how to deal with both of my staff members. Now, the details and the circumstances of that I don't think is fair for either party to air in this place today. However, there will be, I understand, the ongoing AFP investigation and
Order.
the internal investigations
Reynolds,
where I believe
Senator
is the
Wong
right place
on a
to air
point of
those.
order. Senator Wong on a point of order.
Direct relevance. The question was asked whether or not the minister has had any contact with the alleged offender since his termination. I ask the minister to return to the question.
I've allowed you to restate the last part of the question, Senator Wong. I do believe the minister is being directly relevant to an earlier part of the question. There's an opportunity to debate these matters at an appropriate time. Senator Reynolds, to continue.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Look, as I said, these were very complex matters.
Senator Reynolds, time for the
my
answer
office.
has expired. Senator Gallagher, a final supplementary question. Order. Senator Gallagher is on her feet.
Thank you.
Order.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the minister inform the Senate why the alleged offender was terminated, and can you also inform the Senate whether the alleged rapist was assisted in finding employment following the alleged rape by herself or any other member of the government or your staff, whether you provided a reference for that person?
Senator Reynolds.
Sorry, Mr President, I'm somewhat bemused by the question. The person was terminated by me with the assistance of Ministerial and Parliamentary Services. I will take advice on how much I can say about that person's termination, but he was terminated very shortly after this incident, and I'll take on notice and seek some further advice about how much I can actually say in relation to the circumstances surrounding this, and I will come back to the chamber when I've received that advice.
Order. Senator O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash. Could the minister please update the Senate on how the Morrison government's support for the construction industry through the COVID-19 pandemic has supported jobs, small businesses and kept apprentices in training and built the foundation for economic recovery?
The Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr President, and I thank Senator O'Sullivan for his question. And Mr President, the construction industry in Australia, it is just fundamental to our economy. It employs now over 1.1 million Australians, and in terms of the number of small and family businesses within the construction industry itself, there are around 390,000 small businesses. This actually equates to roughly 98.5% of all businesses in the sector. And that is why the Morrison government has made supporting our construction industry a priority throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. In terms of what we've actually done for the construction centre, one of the fundamentals was obviously keeping apprentices and trainees on the job where we need them. And of course, when you get hit with the pandemic, the apprentices and trainees are often the first to go, the first that an employer has to lay off. So we put in place a number of programs to assist our employers in keeping those apprentices and trainees on the tools, on the job, where we need them. They are, of course, the Home Builder program, support for our residential construction pipeline, extending the first loan deposit scheme. But on top of, they were a number of policies: JobKeeper, the cash flow boost, the SME guarantee scheme. All of this has helped minimise the economic impact on this vital sector. But as we emerge from COVID-19, the foundation these policies put in place is driving our early economic comeback. Over the last quarter of 2020, employment in the construction industry, Mr President, is actually increased by 2%, or 22,800 jobs. What we've also seen is more than 85,421 applications to the Home Builder scheme. So what we're seeing is the policies that the Morrison government have put in place throughout the pandemic are assisting the construction industry to employ more people.
Senator O'Sullivan, a supplementary question.
Thank the minister for that answer. How has the Morrison government supporting apprentices and trainees' wage subsidy supported the future of the construction workforce through the COVID-19 pandemic?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr President, according to the National Skills Commission, of the 1.1 million people that are employed in Australia by the construction industry, I'm pleased to say that over 50% of them actually have a VET qualification, vocational education and training. In terms of the support that the government provided, we have our Supporting Apprentices and Trainees wage subsidy. This has been absolutely critical to keeping our apprentices and trainees on the job, as I said. To date, 119,500 apprentices and trainees employed by 62,600 employers have now been assisted, and that includes 59,000 small businesses. And in terms of the actual breakdown of those statistics, what we've seen is 22,500 bricklayers, carpenters and joiners, 17,200 electricians and 12,200 plumbers kept on the job because of the policies that the Morrison government put in place to assist these businesses in the construction industry.
Senator O'Sullivan, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. That's good news. How can the Morrison government's JobMaker plan support the future of the construction industry and ensure that it can continue to drive Australia's economic success into the future?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr President, the policies work together. So in addition to the pipeline of work that we've secured through the Home Builder policy, what we've also put in place is a boosting apprenticeship commencements policy. This is all about supporting the training of a new generation of apprentices. What we've seen to date in relation to that policy, over 88,000 new training contacts have been registered with the program to date, and that includes around 20,000 in the construction industry itself. So when you look at the suite of policies that the Morrison government put in place in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, you've seen the business tax incentives that are out there helping businesses, and in particular small businesses, the instant asset write-off, allowing businesses to invest in themselves but also to write off that new asset. We're removing costly barriers for business. All of those policies combined have supported the construction industry to keep those apprentices and trainees in training on the job where we need them.
Senator Lambie.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Leader of the Government in the Senate, Mr Minister Birmingham. On the 18th of June 2020, the Liberal Party, the National Party and the Labor Party supported a temporary order restricting each senator's ability to move a general business notice of motion. This rule change means that independent senators can move only one motion per week. When you and the Labor Party decided to team up to cut the number of motions that smaller parties were able to move, you argued it was because we were wasting too much of your time. In the 6 months since that temporary order, your government has spent 102 hours considering 111 bills. Over the same amount of time 1 year before, you spent 111 hours considering 136 bills. You spent less time on legislation after you gagged us than you did before you gagged us, and this is over the number of sitting weeks too. My question is, what are you doing with all that time you've saved?
Order. The Leader of the Government, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. Well, I can say, as Leader of the Government in the Senate, and having also held Senator Ruston's role as Manager of Government Business in the Senate, that it is indeed often one of the deep frustrations for governments, and I suspect it was even the case during the years of Labor governments, that the finite amount of time that exists for government business to be considered in this chamber and government legislation to be considered can be eroded by all manner of different things. Certainly, the use of general business notice of motions had become a very substantial point of erosion in relation to the time that it took in the chamber. But indeed, the chamber provides for senators to do many things by leave, for senators to pursue suspensions of standing orders, for senators to use urgency motions and other things that all add up frequently to an erosion of the amount of time available to consider government legislation. Mr. President, there are a number of factors, I think, at play in terms of the consideration of general business notices of motion, not the least of which being the concern felt that increasingly there was a complexity coming into those motions, and that complexity in motions that do not provide an opportunity for individual senators to debate the content of those motions was a problem and was not true and inconsistent with the original intent of the way those motions were expected to be handled. So, Mr. President, I think there are still, though, ample opportunities for all senators, be they through the take-note debate that will ensue shortly, the urgency motion that will happen this afternoon, the adjournment debate that will happen this evening, the matters of public importance that happen at other times in the Senate schedule, or indeed in the debate of legislation itself, for senators to have their say.
Senator Lambie, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. You've said the temporary gag order was needed to get rid of needless motions designed to make a political statement. On February the 4th, 10 coalition senators moved a motion noting that the Queen's been in power for 69 years. If I agree to only move motions asking the Senate to note the length of reign of foreign monarchs, can I please have my cap lifted?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. Well, I do actually suspect, Senator Lambie, that if the Senate had conducted the use of those motions in ways consistent with the original intent of them, which was indeed that for motions to be put without any debate or opportunity for individual senators to make a contribution, they should ordinarily be motions that are largely non-controversial by their nature. That is indeed, if you go back through the past practice of this chamber, what the original intent of that process was. So, yes, Senator Lambie, if senators had simply done that throughout history, we probably would never have got to the point that the Procedure Committee in the chamber got to in relation to the consideration of this. But there are probably many other points of congratulations and noting that could have been achieved without us reaching that point where the chamber made the decision that it did in relation to the management of motions.
Senator Lambie, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. I've spoken to Senator Patrick and I know that he has made representations and asked for a reconsideration of this unfair rule change, to which you have provided no response. Do you think you could use some of that time you've saved to actually get back to him?
Senator Birmingham.
Well, Mr. President, the Senate still sits the same hours per day, and indeed my time is often used in a range of ways. I've discussed this issue with a number of senators, including Senator Patrick, in that regard. I could equally point out, Senator Lambie, that you have just used one of the questions allocated to you in question time to pursue this matter of Senate process and procedure. You could have used it to raise any number of issues that you might have wished to do in a motion instead. And that is one of the other avenues available to all senators in this place to be able to pursue their issues. There are countless avenues available to senators to pursue different issues in this parliament. It doesn't have to be through a general business notice of motion, and I would encourage you and other senators to avail yourself of those different procedures in the standing orders as is appropriate to have your say on behalf of your state or territory.
Senator Sheldon.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister for Defence, Senator Reynolds. On what date did the minister first become aware of allegations of rape made by her former staff member? What action did the minister take as a result?
The Minister for Defence, Senator Reynolds.
Well, I thank the senator for that question, Mr. President. Can I just address a couple of the questions that somewhat took me by surprise previously, and I will come to that, Senator. I can confirm, I've just checked, and I can confirm that my second staff member, he was terminated shortly after this incident occurred, and it was for a security breach. I do not recollect any contact I've had with him since then, and I certainly cannot recollect doing a reference for him. But I have got, now that this issue has been raised, I'm now doing a search of files just to determine that that is true. But I have no recollection, and I can't imagine any circumstance that I would. But again, I will check. I will check that. Yeah, no, absolutely, of course. So he was terminated for a security breach. He was terminated for a security breach. Oh.
Order. Sorry, Senator
Yep.
Reynolds.
Sorry. So, in relation to the last question, the dates, as I said, Senator, you probably know more about the incidents surrounding the incident itself, or at least other members of this chamber do, because there's been a parliamentary inquiry into the circumstances of when and how I was told. So, all of those details, I will provide to the investigation.
Senator Sheldon, a supplementary question.
Yes.
Order.
On what date did the minister first become aware that the allegations of rape made by her former staff member related to conduct on her couch in her ministerial office? What action did the minister take as a result?
Senator Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And in my answer yesterday and in my answer again today, I have gone through those details, and as I've said, it's now subject. All of the detail is subject to an AFP investigation and to at least 2 other inquiries. So I will be, as I've said, providing all information and assistance to those inquiries.
Sorry, Senator Reynolds. I've got Senator Sheldon on a point of order.
Well, it's relevance. I understand very clearly that Ms. Brittany Higgins has said that she is comfortable with these questions being asked. I think it's important that we get to these questions being answered, and there is the capacity for the minister to dutifully answer them.
I've allowed you to make that point, Senator Sheldon. I don't think I can rule the minister as being not directly relevant with the answer she's given. Senator Reynolds, have you to continue?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And noting what the senator has just said, I think it's even more important that we don't politicise that information any further in this chamber. Her trauma was incredibly raw and evident last night, and I think it is appropriate that all of this information is collected by the AFP, who had opened an inquiry into this 2 years ago and into here. So, Mr. President, I think that is the appropriate course of action.
Order on my left.
From here on in.
Order. I'm going to call Senator Sheldon when there's silence. Senator Sheldon, a final supplementary question.
The minister's former staff member was allegedly raped in the Defence Minister's office almost 2 years ago. When was the Prime Minister's office informed and how? And when was the Prime Minister informed and how?
Senator Reynolds.
Look, again, I thank the senator for that question, and as I've said, as I'll say now, I cannot speak for the Prime Minister, and I understand he's been addressing that. I cannot speak for the Prime Minister, and I will not speak for the Prime Minister. And I understand your colleagues are asking those questions today in the House of Representatives. All I can answer and all I can be responsible for is my own conduct and my responsibilities and how I enacted them. I will do that. I will do that not in this chamber. I will do it as appropriate with the Australian Federal Police. I have provided that information as much as I think is appropriate.
Order.
And there will be the forums to do that.
Order. Order. I'll call Senator McKenzie when there's silence. Senator McKenzie.
Thank you very much, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Agriculture, Drought and Emergency Management, Senator Ruston. Is the minister concerned at reports that legislation is being jointly lodged by Democrat and Republican members of the United States Congress seeking to ban imports of kangaroo products to the USA?
Minister representing the Minister for Agriculture, Drought and Emergency Management, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. And can I thank Senator McKenzie for her question, and in doing so acknowledge one of our previous colleagues in this place, the previous Senator Ron Boswell, for his very strong interest in all things agriculture, but particularly the Australia's kangaroo industry that he had such a huge interest in. But yes, Senator McKenzie, we are very concerned about the proposed legislation that has been lodged by a United States congressman, which seeks to ban the import of kangaroo meat and products into the US. We believe that the commercial kangaroo industry in Australia is absolutely appropriate and highly regulated. It's highly sustainable, and our quotas are based on a science-based approach. Our commercial industry has been going now for over 60 years and is considered one of the world's best wild harvest industries in totality. The management of the export of kangaroo products is based firmly on the principles of sustainability, and the industry is a huge provider of jobs, but particularly jobs in rural and regional Australia. And it's very often that those jobs are actually taken up by Indigenous Australians. Australian exports of kangaroo products like meat and hides and skins to around 70 countries around the world, including places like Italy and the United States. And although the United States is not a huge direct importer of kangaroo meats, it is a huge importer of kangaroo leather products. And these leather products are considered to be some of the highest quality leather products in the world. But we are aware of the potential risks this legislation poses for the industry, given the size of the US market, and that global brands could be forced through pressure to move away from using this sustainably harvested product is of great concern to the government. So that's why we have been working to gain support of industry so that we can put pressure on
Senator
the
Ruston.
US.
Senator McKenzie, a supplementary question.
Good to hear, Minister. What damage would an import ban have on our industry, regional communities, farmers and the welfare of kangaroos?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, we know that the coronavirus has had a big impact on all of our rural and regional industries, and the kangaroo export business is no different. But they have been amazingly adaptable and resilient. But a ban any ban of an international market will have large implications. But it's not just because of our direct exports to the US, but because much of our kangaroo product goes via other markets and manufactured into great leather goods, and then they're imported into the US. So it's estimated that the commercial kangaroo industry provides about $200 million per year to rural and regional Australian communities, and 3,000 people are employed in this industry. So it is a hugely important industry, but the fact is that harvest programs are ethically designed to reduce the significant impact that overabundant kangaroo populations can have on our natural environment. And as regional senators would understand, kangaroo populations regularly experience booms and busts.
Senator Ruston. Senator McKenzie, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Can you outline what urgent representations are being made by the Australian government to ensure the United States market remains open for the export of kangaroo products?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, the government will continue to work to ensure that US consumers can continue to buy Australia's high-quality, responsibly sourced kangaroo products. Upon hearing about the bill's introduction to the US in the House of Representatives, the government spoke to the Australian ambassador to the US, previous Senator Arthur Sinodinos, and emphasised the importance of this trade and about making sure that we understood that this was actually a humane management of kangaroo populations and the value of this industry across the whole of Australia. Australian diplomats have initiated contact with congressmen and plan to meet with them to outline Australia's significant concerns around this bill. There is a myth that persists that commercial kangaroo harvesting is a threat to the species. This is not true. The staff at our Washington Embassy are working to advocate for our kangaroo industry's credentials in sustainably and animal welfare areas and are setting the story straight.
Senator Ruston. Senator Wong.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. At the time Ms Higgins disclosed that an alleged rape had taken place in the Minister's office on the evening of the 22nd of March 2019, was the Minister's Chief of Staff a person who had previously worked for the Prime Minister?
The
person returned to the Prime Minister's office after working for Minister Reynolds.
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. I'm aware of Senator Reynolds' former Chief of Staff at that point in time. I can't recall offhand, Senator Wong, in terms of the sequence of the different offices that she has worked in, but I will take that on notice.
Senator Wong, a supplementary question.
I thank the Minister for taking the matter on notice and ask a further question. Ms Higgins has said that the Prime Minister's principal private secretary, whom she describes as Mr Morrison's fixer, was involved in the week after the alleged rape. On what basis was the Prime Minister's principal private secretary involved? What was his role?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. I am not aware. I understand the Prime Minister has answered some questions directly in relation to the contact or otherwise with the Principal Private Secretary, and I'd refer the Senator to the Prime Minister's answers to those questions.
Senator Wong, a final supplementary question.
Well, I would ask the Minister to come back and respond to that question. I ask a further question. Ms Higgins has said that the Prime Minister's Principal Private Secretary contacted her to check in on her when she was off work in the week following Four Corners airing its Inside the Canberra Bubble expose of sexual misconduct within the coalition government. Can the Minister explain why the Prime Minister's Principal Private Secretary made that contact?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. I'd refer the Senator to my previous answer. I am not all of those statements, I think, are necessarily accepted in relation to some of the responses that have been given. However, if there is anything to add to that, I will bring it to the chamber.
Senator Brockman.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Superannuation, Financial Services and the Digital Economy, Senator Hume. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the importance of accessible, quality and professional financial advice. What has the Morrison government done to progress the professionalism of the finance advice industry and make high-quality advice accessible to Australian households?
Minister for Superannuation, Financial Services and the Digital Economy, Senator Hume.
Thank you, Mr President. I'd like to thank Senator Brockman for his question and for his enduring commitment to quality, accessible and affordable professional financial advice. This government has taken significant action to professionalise the financial advice industry. We've put in place renewed professional standards for those who work in the advice industry, including an exam, a degree requirements, a code of ethics and continuing education requirements. Now, these standards have helped ensure that Australians can be confident that when they need guidance on their personal finances, that they are receiving high-quality and professional financial advice. Mr President, I would like to congratulate the nearly 12,000 now financial advisors, stockbrokers, planners and those in the life insurance industry who have taken and already passed the Financial Advisor Standards exam so far. The average pass rate of that exam is 90%, and that's a testament to their hard work, to their skill and to their dedication to the profession, as well as to their commitment to making high-quality financial advice available to every Australian household. Even over the summer break, Mr President, a further 1,200 advisors sat the exam across 14 Australian cities and online. They are now awaiting those results, ready to demonstrate to their clients that they are the committed professionals that their clients expect. And I would like to encourage practising financial advisors, stockbrokers and insurance advisors who have not yet taken the exam or passed the exam to take advantage of the remaining sittings left in 2021 before the deadline ends at the end of this year. I ask you to work with us to make the Australian advice industry the best it can possibly be, because together we can achieve our goal of creating a world-class industry that offers affordable, accessible and high-quality financial advice for all Australians.
Senator Brockman, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. How has the government supported the transition for the financial advice industry during COVID-19 to ensure that remote advisors, those with family commitments and those affected by COVID-19 can complete these requirements?
Senator Hume.
Mr President, the Morrison government has extended the transition period, and advisors now have until January 2026 to complete the education requirements set before them. They also now have until the end of 2021 to pass the exam, but I remind them that with time ticking, it's very important to note that there are only a further 3 opportunities to do so this year. We hope that all existing advisors will make the most of these very important opportunities. We have provided remote sitting options to assist advisors to sit the exam during the pandemic, and many have taken up that opportunity. The online exam can be taken at any time of the day or night, during any day or each and every day of the 6-day sitting period, giving advisors the maximum flexibility to fit around work and family commitments.
Senator Brockman, final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the minister outline further to the Senate how financial advisors can sit the exam?
Senator Hume.
Yes, thank you, Mr President. The next exam sitting will be held between the 25th and the 30th of March this year, including on weekends and with up to 2 in-person sittings each day. The exam can also be taken online or in person in 16 cities across Australia, both metropolitan and regional. The booking period for the March exam is currently open online, and preparation materials are available on the FASEA website and via private providers. Mr President, when my financial advisor, I won't name him because you'll get embarrassed, received his results, he was so pleased he sent me a text message. Now, even for a highly skilled and educated advisor as he is, he already has a master's degree in finance, he knew that this was a new level of professionalism for him and for his firm. I encourage all financial advisors who have not yet passed this exam to register for this sitting. With your help, we can make the best financial planning and stockbroking and insurance advisory industry the best in the world.
Senator Birmingham.